Let's go.
I'd like to welcome each and every one of you to this afternoon's agenda meeting where we will review the action items to be addressed next Tuesday, June 7th, right here in City Hall Board Chambers. We've kind of crossed over. We're on the 31st of May, and Memorial Day was yesterday, so I guess to those who want to not wear a tie, you can forego a tie. We have no ties.
Mayor.
Very good.
So we'll call upon the city manager, Mr. Burrow, to review those action items.
Thank you, Mayor. We appreciate the proclamation for the summer wear. You will have a guest at your Tuesday meeting. Mr. Gary Troutman, President and CEO of Hot Springs Chamber of Commerce and Metro Partnership, will be here to deliver his report. The first item is Resolution R2295, a resolution awarding a term contract to Corin, Maine for polymer meter boxes and lids, and our Utility Director, Monty Ledbetter, will present that item.
Thank you, Mr. Burris. Yes, staff is recommending awarding the bids for the water meter boxes and lids to Corin, Maine, out of North Little Rock, Arkansas. This is for 4 12-month extensions upon mutual agreement. The meter boxes, of course, are used throughout our system. We have a lot of lawnmower accidents and those kind of things that we have to go around and replace these occasionally, and also use them for new services and stuff for new sets. We received 2 bids, and staff is recommending awarding to the low bidder, which was Corin, Maine. Any questions on meter boxes?
There are a number of them, obviously, in the downtown area, and I don't know whether they get broken because the car is pulling up on the curb because they don't parallel park properly. They just pull up, drive over the edge, and fall back into the street.
Yes, sir. We do get a lot of that downtown
And then
area.
the little hatches go missing.
Yes, sir. No, you know, it's surprising how many we go through in a year of just replacing due to traffic, stuff like that. These aren't traffic rated boxes. If they're in an area where they are, then we switch them out to metal lids or concrete. So,
Director Garcia?
Thank you, Mayor. This is a contract for a year and with 4 extensions. Is this the same company we had the previous contract?
yes,
with?
ma'am.
Okay, it's just time for
It's just time to
renewal.
renew it and,
Okay.
yes, and gives them the opportunity to go up on their price again. So,
Uh-oh.
unfortunately,
Well, that's in line with everything else.
it is in line with everything else. That's why we went ahead and rebid it now to go ahead and get that out there to see. So,
Okay.
they were going up on price, so we just went ahead and bid it to see if we were making sure we were getting the best price.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Yes, Director Trustee?
Lonnie, you may have said, and if you did, I'm sorry, I didn't catch it, about how much is this contract?
Well,
What do we anticipate spending on this?
we will, over the next 4 years, we'll spend well more than what the 60,000 that's allotted for managers. So, normally in a year, we don't spend that much, but with it being a 4, well, technically a 5 this year and 4 more years, we'll definitely be over that amount. So,
But it'll be within budget,
yes, ma'am.
always.
Any further questions? Thank you.
Next is Resolution R2296, a resolution awarding a term contract to DPC Industries, Inc. for sodium hypochlorite. And again, Mr. Ledbetter.
Okay, yeah, this is our sodium hypochlorite. We bid this out. DPC is the company that had it last time, and they won that again. They were the low bidder. This is for 4 12 months extensions up on mutual agreement. And the sodium hypochlorite is used at both of our water treatment plants, and will be used at the new one as well. So, I guess, is there any questions on this one?
You have any questions? Thank you.
Next, we have Resolution R 2297, a resolution adding certain water and wastewater assets into the Hot Springs Municipal Utility Water and Wastewater System Fixed Asset Register. And our city engineer, Mr. Carnahan, will present.
Thank you. This is our, about every 6 months, we bring a list of completed water and sewer extension projects to ask you to add them to our list of assets in the city. This list includes 15 projects. They are, the cost was a total of $347,000. The smallest one was a $3,500 little sewer main extension to residents. The largest one was $97,000 for the water and sewer extensions that were required at the Community First Trust Bank on Twin Points Road. So that's really all I would have to say about that.
Any questions? Director Garcia?
Are these costs covered by the developer?
Yes, all these costs were developer-paid costs,
Thank you.
yes.
Any further questions? Thank you.
Next, we have Resolution R 2298, a resolution amending the table of authorized personnel within the engineering department, amending the 2022 budget and for other purposes. And again, Mr. Carnahan.
All right, thank you. This is something we discussed at a work session recently, and because of the, actually, the short version of this is that between AT&T and Summit Utilities, we have 8 construction companies working all around the city installing underground utilities, and it's causing a lot of havoc in our neighborhoods and streets. We have this, so we need additional help, an additional inspector on our staff to help keep track of all those things. On top of that, good news is that we're increasing our paving budget, increasing the amount of streets that we're paving. We're increasing the amount of sidewalk work we're doing, all that bundled together. Well, and also the private sector construction work seems to be increasing also. So all that together puts a big load on our staff, and honestly, we're not able to keep up. So we need help. And so we would appreciate you approving this. For this year, it would be a $40,000 salary, total uploaded, overhead loaded salaries for the rest of this year, plus $5,000 for computers and things like that. On an annual basis, it would be about an $80,000 increase to the budget. So,
Any questions on this? We had a meeting on this the other day. Thank you.
thank you.
Next, we have Resolution R 2299, a resolution accepting a bid from Cranford Construction Company for Lakeshore Drive Overlay Project. It's RDOT Job C26008. As part of the State Aid Street Program, approving a budget adjustment and for other purposes. And Mr. Mike Hill will present.
Yes, as part of the state aid program, we were allocated $300,000 that we can use, and we had chosen to put it at Lakeshore. We put it out for bids twice. The first time we didn't get any bids. The second time we've got one bid for Cranford Construction, and we're proposing that we accept the bid, and we'll be using the $300,000 from RDOT, $52,000 that we had previously set aside, and then $230,933 from our 2022 paving budget, which will require us to move some of those streets to our 2023 paving.
Any questions on this of Mike? Director Garcia?
If we get some of the tax money in before the end of the year, would we be able to keep those streets in this year's paving?
I
If
believe-
we get some of that money for fourth quarter for the tax that was continued?
I believe since the streets have already been approved to pave, that we could pave them as they come in, if we have the funds.
I think currently our budgeted amount includes what we should receive towards that last quarter of this year.
Oh,
So.
But
we'll-
if it was more, then we could,
Yeah, if it comes in more, we
we'll
could
just
add
keep
additional
going down the
streets.
list. Because
Yeah.
he said 23, I didn't know how far down the list that
Well, right
meant.
now, we've started our 2023 list, and they're at the top of the list. The ones that we are
Okay.
deferring, they're at the top of our 2023 list.
And should we have additional funds come in, we'll continue to knock those off in '22.
Okay. Or if funds are allocated to it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Thank you.
Next, we have Resolution R-22-100, a resolution authorizing the filing and acceptance of a Federal Aviation Administration and Arkansas Division of Aeronautics grant for an airport drainage study, design and construction, and repealing Resolution Number 9982, and Airport Director Glenn Barentine will present.
Thank you, sir. March 15th of this year, the board authorized the filing for the FAA grant for $130,000. Since that time, the FAA's came back to us and asked us to include a construction project along with the study and the design. So I'm asking for file for the grant not to exceed $600,000. And of course, this is a zero fund for the airport, 95 from the feds and 5% from the state.
Any questions of Glenn? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have two items under your old business. The first is Resolution R-2275, a resolution declaring a certain structure located at 445 Silver Street in the city of Hot Springs a public nuisance and condemning such pursuant to Hot Springs Code 1711. And Ms. Selman will present.
Excuse me, thank you. This has been continued several times to perfect notice. We have received the green card on the notice to the owner. So this is finally ready to go.
Any questions? Director
Is this the one
Trustee?
where the bank was involved?
Yes, sir.
And we have now received notice from the bank as well?
Right, and
Okay.
and the next one.
Yep.
Okay, both of them? Thank you.
Next, we have Resolution R-2279, a resolution declaring a certain structure located at 718 Ward Street in the city of Hot Springs a public nuisance and condemning such pursuant to Hot Springs Code 1711. And again, Ms. Selman.
Thank you. This one also, we have perfected the notice and it is ready to go.
Any questions on this? Thank you.
The next item is under your new business and begins new business, Resolution R-22-101, a resolution declaring a certain structure located at 414 Henderson Street in the city of Hot Springs a nuisance and condemning same pursuant to Title 17 of the Hot Springs Code. Ms. Selman.
Thank you. Excuse me. This is a vacant, single-family residence, and Neighborhood Services created the first file on this structure in 2008. Vacant structure file, thank you, was started in 2013. And other than a few occupancies by squatters at this site, the structure has remained vacant since 2013.
Any questions? Director Garcia?
In the packet, will it include the owners?
Well, the owner is Ms. Vivian Hutchinson, and she's deceased, and her son Kenneth Hutchinson has inherited the property. Following the recommendation of the city attorney, both were notified by a certified mail at Mr. Hutchinson's address.
But all of these that are included, on the agenda, it doesn't show the owner's name, but I was just asking if the packet
Oh,
that we
yeah.
receive, they'll have all the owners'
Oh, yeah,
names.
more
Thank
than
you.
you ever would
Yeah,
want.
yeah,
Yep.
thank you.
Next, Resolution R-22-102, a resolution declaring a certain structure located at 1010 Greenwood Avenue in the city of Hot Springs a nuisance and condemning same pursuant to Title 17 of the Hot Springs Code. And again, Ms. Selman.
Thank you. Excuse me. 1010 Greenwood is a vacant, single-family residence. There are two structures on the property, including what has to be my favorite address of all time, 101 Peculiar Alley. That's also on this parcel, but We are not seeking condemnation of that structure, only the structure that is addressed 1010 Greenwood. This was condemned by a previous board in 2020 following a fire. At that time, enough work was completed by the owners under a permit that removal did not occur. However, little, if any, work has been completed since that time. The structure continues to deteriorate. It has remained vacant and secured since then, despite notices requesting that work be resumed. And the owners on this property are Mr. Jose Cano, Mario Cano, and Joanna Iriqueta, and they have owned it since 2004. They've been notified separately. We have proof of service from all three of them.
Any questions of Ms. Salmon on this property? Thank you.
Next, we have Resolution R-22-103, a resolution declaring a certain structure located at 110 Boaz Street in the city of Hot Springs a nuisance and condemning same pursuant to Title 17 of the Hot Springs Code. Again, Ms. Selman.
Thank you. 110 Boaz is a vacant single-family residence, and Neighborhood Services has been working with the owners since 2012. In 2020, following notices, the owner, Mr. Willie Curtis, obtained a demo permit to remove the structure. That permit expired in May of 2021. The owner has not responded to notices requesting that demo be completed and debris removed from the property. The back half of the house is missing. Decking and rafters from the roof, excuse me, there's an open crawl space. Mr. Curtis is working without a permit at this time and at a very slow pace. We are asking that the board condemn the property so that the city might assist Mr. Curtis with removal of the structure. There is a possible lender that was revealed in a title search, and notification went to both that lender and Mr. Curtis, and we have proof of service on both.
Any questions of Ms. Selman on this item? Thank you.
Your next item is your first ordinance of the evening. It's ordinance O-2218, an ordinance amending the zoning map from C2 to R4 for split zone property generally located at 500 Terry Street, amending the future land use plan map and for other purposes. Ms. Selma.
Thank you. This is approximately 1.35 acres of land at approximately 500 Terry. It's behind the old Walmart. Has a future land use classification of linear commercial corridor and residential medium high, and it's located in District 5. The applications from the proposed builder would be, states that he would like to construct 8 luxury duplexes. If rezoned, of course, the full range of uses that are allowed in R4 would be possible. The duplex thing is not a condition, and it doesn't limit in any way the uses there. Planning Commission advertised their agenda and called for testimony at their regularly scheduled May 12th meeting. By their 8-0 vote, Planning Commission accepted staff report findings and recommendation that the board adopt an ordinance amending the official zoning map to designate the C2 portion of the subject property to R4 medium high density residential district, because the change demonstrates compatibility with surrounding zoning and uses and with adopted city plans if the future land use plan map is amended to residential medium high, and thereby meeting the requirements of Hot Springs Code Section 16 to 11E.
Any questions on this item? Thank you.
Next, we have ordinance O-2219, an ordinance amending the zoning map from R4 to C2 for split zone property generally located at 1207 Albert Pike Road, amending the future land use plan map and for other purposes. Ms. Summer.
Thank you. The applicant is Mr. Marvin Rodriguez, and he's asking for C2 General Business District zoning for a portion of his 2 acres of land that is currently zoned R4. Again, this is split zoned, as the previous one was. Has a future land use classification of linear commercial corridor and residential medium high. Planning Commission duly advertised their agenda, call for testimony at their regularly scheduled May 12th, 2022 meeting. By their 8-0 vote, Planning Commission accepted the staff report findings and recommendation that the board adopt an ordinance amending the official zoning map to designate the R4 portion of the subject property to C2 General Business, because the proposed change demonstrates compatibility with surrounding zoning and uses and with adopted city plans if the future land use plan map is amended to linear commercial corridor, as the rest of this parcel is already.
Any questions, Ms. Selman, on this parcel, this item? Thank you.
Thank you.
And next, we have ordinance O-2220, an ordinance prescribing a general penalty where no specific penalty is provided or adopted by reference and for other purposes. And our city attorney, Mr. Albright, will discuss this item.
Thank you, Bill. Mayor, members of the board, Arkansas Code Annotated 14-55-502 authorizes cities to prescribe penalties for violation of their ordinances, provided that our penalty can't be greater than a penalty that is assessed for a similar state violation, nor less severe than a similar state violation. And so under 14-55-504, the state prescribes what the maximum penalties are. We have often in the past referred to that as our general penalties provision, because there's a provision within our code that prescribes our maximum penalties. Most of our violations of ordinances refer to that general penalties clause. 14-55-504 was recently amended by the state legislature to increase the amounts of those maximums, and so in order to get into accord with state law and to update our code, this would be something that's being presented to you for your consideration. So the fines now do not exceed $1,000 for the first offense, $2,000 for the second offense, $4,000 for each subsequent offense, and if a thing is continuing in nature, that fine is $500 per day. This would repeal your previous ordinance of record, which was ordinance 4917 of 2000.
Any questions of Mr. Albright? Thank you.
Next, we have your final item. It's ordinance O-2221, an ordinance authorizing a contract for services with the Hot Springs Advertising and Promotion Commission for youth recreational programs at Majestic Park, waiving competitive bidding and for other purposes. As the board knows, we received a request for partnership and funding from Majestic Park. Mr. Derek Phillips is here this evening, or this afternoon. We did budget $75,000 in the 2022 budget, and that was the request of Majestic, Derek at Majestic. So we're glad to entertain any discussion if you need any further information.
Not sure we need any further information, but can you give us a 30-second overview of how things went this spring?
Absolutely. This is the league play only we brought back to Hot Springs. We had 504 kids register. That was 42 teams from ages 5 to 15. We played right at 200 games this year. We'll be sending 11 teams to state tournaments for postseason all-stars. And we have our Majestic Park Scholarship Fund for the local league. We had 81 kids apply. We were able to award all those kids scholarships. I thought that was really great with the donations and a little bit of fundraising we've done for that. And it's been a really good season so far. It wraps up this week for the regular season. Like to end it kind of when school ends. So you're not having kids gone, on vacation and stuff like that when the game's in. But it's been a good season. Really enjoyed it, and bringing this league back to the community. It's been missing for a few years.
Now, a lot of times participation falls off as the kids get older. So what's the oldest bracket and how many teams did you field?
So there's 5 leagues there. There's a 5 and 6 that play together, a 7-8 that play together, a 9 and 10, 11 and 12, and a 13 through 15. And you're exactly right. The biggest league is actually the 7 and 8-year-olds. There's 10 teams in the 5 and 6, 12 teams in the 7-8, 9 teams in the 9 and 10, 7 teams in the 11 and 12s, and 4 teams in the 13 through 15. When you start getting older, after 10, it becomes more than just an activity and a little bit more of a specialized sport that kids are playing that are really interested in baseball. So it does kind of shrink down as they get older, but it's still that many kids, and those each age group is really good. We were very pleased with the number that signed up in all the age groups, actually. So, and hopefully we can retain them. The people enjoy the park and the concessions and playing there, and hopefully it grows from here, actually, even though with having over 500 kids signed up.
Weekend tournaments going well?
It's been going great. We started in late February. We haven't missed a weekend since. We've got 7 more weeks of tournaments with from end of June to the end of July, some big-time championship tournaments, state, regional, and World Series tournaments coming up. And so, yeah, the tournament's been going really well. Playing at our park, other parks around the state have to close down because it's wet. And we can play just about anything, on our fields with our turf. It's been amazing to not lose games. So, yeah, the tournament season's been great.
Very good. Well, thank you. Anyone else have a question or comment?
I do. So I'm not sure what all is going to come in the packet, but I know Director Jones and I get a little more information because of being on the commission. But I was going to ask if you could provide for the rest of the board in the packet some details about what the 22 Majestic Park budget is, your year-to-date P&L on that, and then a more detailed report on scholarship funds, especially the demographics. You and I talked about that earlier, and then I apologize.
Majestic Park budget. Say that again?
P&L,
P&L,
year-to-date. A report on the scholarship fund, where that fund balance is and what was expensed. I know you said 81 kids, but we talked at one point about looking at the demographics of the players and those who receive scholarships.
Sure.
And just so we have, because like I said, we've been privileged to have a little more detailed information,
right.
but in advance of allocating funds, I think it'd be good for everyone to have that information.
Okay, thank you.
Derek, if you get that information to us by Thursday, we can get that sent out in the board's packet that they'll review prior to their Tuesday's meeting.
Yes, sir. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Mayor, that concludes the items for your Tuesday night's board meeting.
Very good. Well, a number of these items are on the consent agenda, and then we have the condemnations and some old business, so won't be too lengthy of a meeting, but nonetheless, we'll address each one appropriately. So that concludes our agenda meeting for this afternoon. We do have a work session on STRs, and